It's 1:30. I'd like to call the Monday, April 20th, 2015 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission to order. Roll call, Commissioner Witcher, not here. Commissioner Littlefield. Present. Commissioner White. Here. Commissioner Hale. Here, sir. Commissioner Schuline. Not here. Commissioner Miller. Here, sir. Commissioner George. Not here. And Commissioner Yockel. Here. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion concerning the approval of the minutes of the March 16, 2015 meeting, please? Motion to approve. We have a motion to approve the minutes from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second from Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 16, 2015 from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. Report on license, taxi, and record service from the Police Department. It's our quarterly report covering January, February, and March. Sir?
Good afternoon. Our quarterly report is going to be on the taxis and shuttles. We had 56 new permits issued, 87 renewed, 3 duplicates, and 2 transfers. Vehicle inspections, 45 passed, we had 13 fail. On limos, we had 21 new permits, 3 renewed. On carriages, we had 1 new, 2 renewed. Petty cabs, we had 5 renewed and 5 new and 1 duplicate. And on complaints, we had 4 complaints with 4 investigations, 2 field inspections, and 3 citations during that quarter. Have any questions?
Hey, anybody have any questions? Could we get an update on the transportation network vehicle status? I know that the deadline's coming up here at the end of the month. Do we have any input?
The last 2 Saturdays, we've showed up to permit them for vehicles and drivers, and nobody has showed.
Okay. And do we still have only one transportation network company with a application for license?
Uber's the only one that's got their application in and license so far. Lyft has not done anything.
Right. And so the deadline of 30 April was for the drivers, the current drivers or the previous drivers of, say, Uber, to get their driver's license with us.
To get correct.
Their permit with us. And that's what that one deadline is, 30 April for all the drivers who were driving previously to get caught up. Of course, all new drivers for Uber had to get their permit right away before they started driving.
Supposed to.
Correct. And so then Lyft has not submitted for an application yet to operate in the city.
Correct.
And so therefore all their drivers are not licensed.
Correct.
In the city. Okay. All right. Now I know there was some talk, everybody's kind of pending about the state law or the state bill that's running around with the Senate and the House. Could we have an input on where that's all at so we can kind of think about how concerned we are about what we just talked about? Thank you.
Okay.
My name have your name and your job here.
Yes. My name is Jane Abraham. I'm Community and Government Affairs Manager for the City of Oklahoma City. And essentially the status of the bill right now is passed both the House and the Senate, passed the Senate last week. It has to go back to the House for the Senate amendments to be accepted by the House. And so if that goes through with the majority vote, then it will go to the governor. So it's likely that that won't happen this week. This is a deadline week out there, so bills have to pass the opposite chamber or they're done for the session. Since it's already passed the Senate, it has to go back to the House. The House probably won't hear it this week, but probably the week after.
So when does that process at the state kind of stop?
Well, okay, sine die is May 29th, so they have to be done by then.
You said May 29th?
May 29th,
May
yes.
29th, okay.
It's possible that if, they run into opposition or they decide not to bring it to the floor of the House, it could go to conference. They could decide to reject the amendments. Typically, the way that'll happen is that the author will make that request essentially on the floor to reject the amendments, the Senate amendments, and then the bill goes to conference. So that could happen if they have more amendments that they want to make to the bill. And so that's kind of the last possible step, unless they decide to just bring it to the floor of the House for a straight vote.
Right, so there's no, like, within the next week or two, they got to make a choice on these bills, per se. It can go all the way to the end of the legislative session.
Correct.
Okay? And bills don't carry over for the next session?
They do carry over for the next session. They do.
This
is the first half of a 2-year session.
Mm-hmm.
So if it were to be laid over, it can be laid over and be heard next session.
Right, okay,
That's
what I wanted to just clarify.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yes, that's correct.
Because we're at the start of the 2-year session time.
Right,
okay.
Right, exactly.
All right, if you would just wait. Anybody have any questions for her about the status of the bill that's pending? Now, the big thing in the bill that applies to us is that last paragraph where it says no other city, county, whatever can put any rules against what the state has written.
That's correct.
That's the real big thing.
Yes, the transportation network companies would come under the auspices of the Corporation Commission.
And that's it.
And they would have a statewide permit through the CorpCom, and that's it. Correct.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for her? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Could
you.
we let the record show that Commissioner Schuline has shown up? Thank you very much. Does anybody have any comments on the taxi record service or the information that we just talked about? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the information. Okay, there's no items on the consent docket, so we'll skip item 4. And we go to item 5, 5A, John M. Spence, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73132, to consider a request for a northbound left turn restriction on North Libby Avenue at the Northwest Expressway, State Highway 3. And we do have somebody that wishes to speak on it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you could go ahead and stand up, I'd like to have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
I'm new at this, John M. Spence, as you saw my address and so forth. And I thank you for the time for listening to my plea today. And it's a matter of Northwest Highway in this location is pretty heavy traffic, as you probably well know. And there's no problem with what's going on out there with this left turn business unless somebody happens to stop in the intersection. This is what it looks like with no traffic. And you can see very well up and down the highway, no problem at all. My concern is, and I was even fearing for my life when I went to take these pictures the other day, when somebody stops to turn left, as you'll see a little closer, I'll have these pictures to you, you cannot see oncoming traffic. And you're taking your life in your hands to poke out there and hope nobody's coming in the other direction. The same thing appears on the other direction when you're legally making, well, they're all legal, I guess, making a left-hand turn going into Libby. The people that are stuck over in the intersection cannot see the traffic oncoming from the east either way. And it's fine as long as nobody's in the intersection, but when they stop like this, that's where the problem arises. And I guarantee you, at some point in time, because I've seen it 2 or 3 times when I've stopped here, and I just wait till they get out of my way. There's no way I'm going to cross that street without seeing traffic coming. But some people do it anyway, and that's my concern. That's pretty much the long and the short of it. And if you'd like to look at these pictures, I appreciate it. Do you have any questions on what I presented so far? Who do I give the pictures to?
Oh, pictures to right up here. Yeah. Fine. All right. Is that it, sir?
That's it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have somebody else that wishes to speak. Yes, ma'am. If I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Susanna Dean. I reside at 7017 North Ann Arbor Terrace, and I am the president of the Neighborhood Association. I want to say it was 2 or 3 months ago that John talked to me about his request that he was going to make. Since we do have a neighborhood association, I presented it to the board, and we discussed at length John's request, and they decided, the entire board decided, basically not to do anything. A lot of people like that, being able to turn left. There are 8 ways you can get in and out of our neighborhood. Yes, Northwest Highway is, it is a extremely busy street, but you can go to the east and get on Meridian and go up to Northwest Highway and then go back and go that way. You can cut through Cherokee Hills. There are 8 entrances and exits to the neighborhood, and generally if you've lived there a good amount of time, you generally know when you can go up to this intersection and turn left. Even if they'll wait. Some people will wait. They might back up, and if the line is too long, or if it's going to be impossible to cross. I see where John's coming from, but the board has discussed it. We chose that it was okay. It's been like this for, we have people that have lived there since the houses were built, over 50 years. And there hasn't been an accident at this intersection since 2009. Not to say that one might not happen, but generally everybody is really careful. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak on this item? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
All right, well, you've got comments before you. If we just jump over to the recommendations. One thing I want to make note that there's not a remarkable collision history at this location. There's only been a handful over the course of the years. The last one that we had on record occurring at the intersection was in 2009. You've got adequate decision site distance for making a turn. Now, arguably, this particular median opening is narrower than the next nearest one, which is on the west, to the west of about 400 feet over, which is opposite a street called Rumsey Road. That median opening is wider, and it does make for probably a more comfortable left-turning situation, simply because the opening is wider. But the one thing is, in researching this matter, if you go try and look through the Oklahoma Driver's Manual, there's no guidance for people when it comes to the appropriate place to be when trying to maneuver through a median opening. Do you stay to the right of the road? If you were to do, as you pass through the median opening, or if you were to do that, you'd essentially close off the left turn lane. So most drivers will naturally gravitate to the left side, even though it's not the technically correct side. However, it's the only side that allows you to make a turn. But in this particular case, this is like a 36-foot wide median opening at its narrowest point. The next one up the road is about 43 feet. So it does lend itself to being used. The one over at Rumsey Road operationally does function better. It's not to say that this one couldn't be widened. Of course, if it's widened, it would be something that we would turn over to our colleagues over at the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, since this is State Highway 3. But really, action on this will kind of be at the discretion of the commission. And like I said before, we don't have a collision history that seems to support this as being something that needs to be addressed. It seems to function all right. The neighborhood is very well connected to other streets, so whether you can turn left here or not is typically, a lot of times it's typically a function of the availability of other options. And this particular neighborhood just so happens to be very well connected. And actually there's a continued development in the War Acres area right now, which is actually adding a couple more connections to these streets, which allows residents to go further to the west, and then it'll give them access to a signal over at what's known as Cherokee Plaza and Marketplace. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5A? There you go.
I move for a denial.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield to disapprove item 5A.
Second.
And we have a second by Commissioner Hale. Do we have any discussion? Ma'am?
I would just like to ask the applicant again, tell me one more time the 2 or 3 reasons that are most concerning for you personally and for those around you. I just want to make sure I'm hearing your concern.
I'm fine with turning left if you could make it across the 3 lanes of traffic and enter the Northwest Expressway. But if you can't, have you seen the picture yet that come around? You block the view of oncoming traffic, so you don't know if it's safe to pull out on that highway. Also, I forgot to mention, if you look on one of those pictures, it has a no U-turn sign right there, which is telling people going east on the Northwest Expressway, you can't make a U-turn in that intersection, which is saying somebody doesn't want traffic going in that intersection to make a U-turn. If they don't want to make a U-turn, they sure don't want to make a left turn. It's the same thing, because if they stop there, you saw in the pictures, you can't see. And I'm concerned it just takes one fatality for this to happen. And weighing against fatality versus putting a sign up, to me, it's a no-brainer. So that's my concern. And like I said, I was in fear of my life when I got out and took those pictures. And unfortunately, when I took one picture, I looked around, and there were cars lined up in that left-hand turn lane. And I couldn't see to turn left to get on the highway. I wouldn't do it to start with. And it's very simple. If you need to go that other direction, you can turn right, go down to Meridian. There's a U-turn right there at the light, which is safely lets you turn and get on the highway and go where you're going. It's just people in too much of a hurry just to get across that busy highway. That's my concern. I'm not going to do it. I tell you that.
So if somebody encounters the situation you're talking about where someone's stopped and they can't see traffic, they can just choose to change their mind and go right, correct?
Well, if they don't get stuck in the intersection, once you're there, you're stuck there and you can't see. See, they don't know that until they get across the street and they're stopped there like I was once, coming the other direction, and I couldn't see to turn in the legal left-hand turn lane, which is appropriate for that. I couldn't see the oncoming traffic, as you see in that picture. For me to make a legal left-hand turn, I couldn't see the traffic coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any items?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a discussion point? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield to disapprove item 5A, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is not approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5B. Mark Grobes, P.E., President Grobes Consulting, LLC, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73128. Consider request 2. 1, establish 90-degree angle parking within a proposed on-street parking area on the south side of Southwest 26th Terrace from approximately 40 feet west to 140 feet west of the west curb line of Cutter Avenue. And 2, establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the south side of Southwest 26th Terrace from approximately 40 feet west to 56 feet west of the west curb line of Cutter Avenue. Anybody here to speak on this item? Sir, if I can have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and if you can fill out one of these forms afterwards, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mark Grubbs on behalf of the applicant, 1819 South Morgan Road with Grubbs Consulting. We are the engineering firm that's currently designed Timber Creek Estates Section 4, the fourth section of Timber Creek. And so right now we're under construction of the streets, and what we're asking, the HOA negotiated with the developer to take down a certain amount of lots with them. So they have negotiated to take down these 3 lots here. Our original application was to come in, and we actually were proposing more parking. This is a fairly new concept and something that's been being talked about. There's no defined code on it at this time. So I've been working with Mr. Chai on this, but this is the overall plat of Timber Creek Estates Section 4. This is Section 2. This is Section 3 that ties into this. And here are the 3 lots that we're talking about here. And as you can see, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots around that cul-de-sac. there will actually be 4 homes. And the reason I point that out is that staff is recommending we're currently proposing 18 feet on those lots, and they're asking for 22 feet. And if 22 feet is what it takes to get it approved, we will agree to that. I would only like to further mention that when this is completely developed, it will be a part of the HOA, and the covenants and restrictions do not allow on-street parking. I have Nate, who's currently enforces that, and he is very strict on the no parking on the street. And Mr. Chai has pointed out that they're only asking for that 22 feet because of parking on the other side of the street and backing out. Here again, I'll say the HOA is taking down those 3 lots, and they also, this is common area behind it. So they have quite a bit of area to put amenities in there, and the parking is a definite need there. So if it takes the 22 feet to get it approved, I would just like to bring to your attention that there is not on-street parking allowed, and that if we could take that into consideration, then it would be much appreciated. Other than that, we agreed to make the right-of-way encumber the parking and the sidewalk that is required. So, and as you can see, like I said, we took off we originally had like 19 spaces. I can't remember, Stuart, was that right? And then we took it down to 11 with the 1 handicap, so that it's not in that intersection, which that stub will likely never be used because there's a homeowner to the north, and there was a lot of agreeances with him. So, but it was a requirement of the engineering department. So, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anybody else to speak on item 5B? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Okay, we've got our comments before you. Like I said, the one thing that Mr. Grubbs discussed, and which is a common theme of what we've done, or the commission has done in the past, is providing for deeper 90-degree angle parking spaces when they're provided on a residential street, because technically speaking, on public right-of-way, unless the city enacts parking restrictions, parking is allowed on streets like that. So if your homeowners association is wanting to pursue something like that, from a legal regulatory standpoint, you'll need to make a supplemental application to the commission to restrict on-street parking. Otherwise, it is allowed. But since parking is allowed on, as far as the city goes, is allowed on the street, by having a deeper space, it allows a vehicle to be able to maneuver around. Because if your back bumper is right at the edge of the space, if there's someone parked on the other side, you may, depending on the size of your vehicle, get caught in a position where you can't exit until the other cars have cleared. So we would recommend approval, or if you're going to consider the item, we'd recommend approval subject to the staff recommendations found on page 4. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Make a motion to approve with the changes recommended by staff, the 3. Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Hale to approve item 5B with staff recommendations, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on this item?
I have a question about one of the drawings. I guess if we can look at any top-down view of the diagram.
Ma'am, did you want to see the one that he had?
Yeah, we could just look.
Could we see your map, please? She has a question about it. Here we go.
Yeah, page 7 on the report. So the parking spaces are, I'm just going to say it on the south side of your map. I don't know what real direction that is. And so the lots on the north side of that street are, what you said, 4 to 5 lots for homes? Yeah, I got to see the other side.
These right here are the 3 lots that encumber the HOA, along with this common area here.
No, I'm talking about the lots that are north. Are those to be homes? And they're not homes right now, right? Where would be the driveway of those lots? Would they come into that?
Typically be off of 26 Terrace, but there's nothing that restricts them from this one from being on Cutter.
Cutter runs this way. Oh, so those two lots could have activity that comes down, which is directly across from the parking spaces you're asking for, right? Okay, that answers my question.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about item 5B? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Hale with the staff recommendations, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Thank you. Okay, we go on now to item 5C. John Marin, Director of Operations, Moore Public Schools. Operations Department, Moore, Oklahoma, 731608232, to consider a request for a mid-block pedestrian crossing on South Portland Avenue, approximately 300 feet south of the south curb line of Southwest 125th Street. Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Okay, well, if you go on to look at the photographs, you can see that this is actually, when class dismisses, there's actually a kind of a busy location for pedestrian crossings. The city currently is working with the school district. The school district is preparing plans for putting together the ADA crossing improvements on the west side of the street. The city's working with the Rockport Association, or Homeowners Association on the east side of the street, who's providing funding for the city to use with an as-needed contract to construct a wheelchair ramp and sidewalk to provide pedestrian access up to the the homes in the Rockport addition, which is entered through Southwest 125th Street. So if working in combination with the Homeowners Association, we could recommend approval of this particular request, subject to the applicant bearing responsibility for the preparation of the plans and construction of the work on the west side, the city taking care of the work on the east side using funds from the Rockport addition, Homeowners Association, and the applicant entering into an agreement with the Oklahoma City Police Department to provide a crossing guard that's properly trained and vetted through the police department. Because right now they've got a member of their custodial staff that's been issued a vest and a stop sign and is functioning he's a de facto crossing guard. Answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning 5C?
Move for approval.
Move for approval with the comments?
Yes.
And all the requirements. Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Littlefield with staff comments.
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Littlefield with, one moment. Yes, sir.
I was just looking, I don't see sidewalks on the other side of the street where the children, I suppose, are crossing, but it just doesn't look like they have sidewalks to traverse on once they get across.
Right. Currently, there are no sidewalks on either side of the street. The school district is preparing plans where they're going to come up with they're going to extend their sidewalk along what would be the south side of their northern driveway and then put in an ADA accessible ramp. And for its part, the city, using funds provided by the Rockport Association, will construct a matching sidewalk, a companion sidewalk on the east side of the road and connect that into the Rockport addition. So at that point in time, we'd go out there and mark the crossing. But it has to be, those routes would have to be in place before we go ahead and put up the signs and put down the pavement markings.
Okay, any other questions or comments for item 5C? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5C with comments from staff, from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Now we go on to 5D. Samuel Allen, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73139, to consider request for all-way stop control at South Winston Way and Southwest 91st Street. So if I can have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Sam Allen. I live at 1100 Southwest 91st Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73139. I'm here today to ask for your consideration in granting the petitioners an all-way controlled intersection at 91st and Winston Way. If y'all please bear with me for just a few minutes while I attempt to explain our knowledge of this intersection from our perspective as petitioners. This is what we have seen and observed every day. We believe the intersection awareness and ability of the northbound drivers with an average dangerous speed of 30 miles per hour on approach at the 85th percentile are being severely compromised by a majority of southbound drivers driving left of center immediately approaching the intersection. The northbound drivers are really busy trying to slow down from going too fast to avoid going left of center themselves. They're a dangerous S-curve immediately north of the intersection. The cause for the majority of the southbound drivers driving left of center on approach to this intersection is, in our opinion, a result of drivers going southbound through an S-curve that is too sharp to safely navigate at the posted 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. We, the petitioners, believe that a stop sign on the southbound approach to this intersection would slow the southbound drivers and pull them in closer to the curb from being left of center, with them having an anticipation of a stop sign coming ahead and stopping. We believe that the stop sign placed for the northbound drivers at this intersection would keep them from approaching this dangerous S-curve immediately north of the intersection at high rates of speed that are not safe for it, having caused on several instances of drivers hitting curbs, driving through lawns, taking out mailboxes to avoid hitting other cars that are also left of center. The stop sign would allow them to approach this dangerous curve at a much slower speed after proceeding through the intersection. We also believe that a stop sign placed for the eastbound drivers that are turning north or south through this intersection would keep them safe from the cars going northbound through the intersection when there are cars parked along the west side of Winston Way at the curb, obstructing views of oncoming northbound cars. This intersection has a high volume of traffic along with a high volume of children and pedestrians that use and cross this intersection daily. There are a large apartment complex with 185 units just to the northeast of this intersection that also uses this intersection for their school children, elementary, junior high, and high school kids all either cross, wait, or both at this intersection. We feel it is only a matter of time before someone is either seriously injured or killed here. The property damage of the homeowners at this intersection has been immeasurable over the years, attributed to many going unreported for various reasons. I have spoken to all the homeowners that reside around this intersection, and there is a fear among everybody of feeling unsafe out in their front yards and in their homes. Because of the traffic situation at this intersection, we have seen and witnessed cars driving through lawns, hitting and going over curbs, sliding, taking out mailboxes, knocking down the street light, hitting the fire hydrant, running into our tree in the front yard, crashing into our home, driving through our backyard, and also crashing into the front of our neighbor's home. Our home that is on the south side of this intersection was crashed into while we were sleeping at 3 a.m. My neighbor's home on the north side of this intersection was crashed into approximately 7 months later at approximately 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I am also a father of 2 children, ages 11 and 14. My 14-year-old is autistic and is very impulsive. While we strive to do our best to keep him safe and keep watch over him, we are constantly reminded that he is not even safe in his own backyard because of the way traffic is at this intersection. I have replaced my fence to my backyard twice in the last 3 years. It is this grave concern that we, the petitioners, ask for your approval of making our homes and neighborhoods safer by establishing an always stop control at this intersection.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I just want to make sure it's understood these were handed, these are yours, right? These were handed to us, make sure that they're in the record. Okay. Does everybody up here have seen it? Okay. All right.
I would also like to say one more thing.
Sure.
If you'll notice in the report, in the summary of staff recommendations on page 4, it states in the first line, establishing an always stop control at this intersection may reduce the number of roadway departure instances and their resulting severity. If establishing an always stop control in a neighborhood intersection reduces the number of roadway departures and resulting severity and prevents injury, serious injury or death just one time, won't it be worth it?
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anybody else wanting to speak on item 5D? You can go ahead and have a seat, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we have staff input, please?
All right. Well, you've got our comments before you. I think what I'll do in this particular case is I'll kind of run down through things in page order. On page 1, you'll notice we've got our summarized traffic data for Winston Way and also for 91st Street. When we look at intersections for all-way stop control, an intersection with 3 approaches, typically our threshold volume, which is just one aspect that we look at. Historically, the city's looked at about an average daily traffic volume of entering vehicles about 1,875 per day. This particular intersection is running about 2,901. So it's handily above that. However, the majority of traffic that passes through here is on Winston Way itself. And as far as traffic entering the intersection, the minor street is Southwest 91st Street, and you can see that you've got about not quite 500 cars a day entering on that. When you look at that with respect to our stop sign or our all-way stop control warrants, typically you should see that we should be within about 40%, I believe, of the minor street should have about 40% of the traffic volume of the major. In this particular case, it's about 21%. We also ran speed studies in this area, looking at the speeds through the curves to the north and then on the straight section south of 91st Street. You can see that through the curves, the 85th percentile speed was running in the 20 mile per hour range. As you make it south of 91st Street, it jumps to about 30 miles an hour. The staff report does reflect that for purposes of traffic control, this particular intersection doesn't have a collision history, nor does it have basically a distributed traffic volume that would suggest that all-way stop control would be appropriate for use here. The one interesting thing is that even though there have not been that many collisions recorded at this particular intersection, we do have record of about 4 run off the road or roadway departure type incidents, and for a residential intersection, that is out of the norm. One thing to consider when looking at converting this to all-way stop control is there are 2 houses on the east side of the road, and both of them will have their driveways within an all-way stop controlled intersection. They'll probably wind up in kind of an awkward situation for them because they'll never get the right-of-way. I mean, one would hope that they wouldn't presume that because other cars are stopping that they're giving them right-of-way, because state law reads that everyone entering a public way from either a driveway or a private street does not, has to yield to traffic on the roadway or on the public way. Then the other thing is that will result in a few parking restrictions because our codes read that you can't park within 30 feet upon an approach to a stop sign. And in this particular case, the house that's on, well, it would be the applicant's home. There won't be any curb space left in front on Southwest 91st Street where they could park legally, and somewhat similar conditions would apply on the approaches on Winston Way. So at this point in time, action will be at the discretion of the commission and answer whatever questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve item 5D from Commissioner Yockel. We have a second. Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Littlefield. Okay, I just want to, sir, if you could come back up, I have a question. Mr. Chai brought up a good point. The houses, it appears, that are on the curve, that you show a couple pictures of some cars parked there or something, those things won't be able to be parked there. Are the people who live in those houses aware of that they'll lose on-street parking there?
I'll read to you what they told me, because I asked them about that too.
Okay, good.
They told me that they currently felt it was more dangerous for them to back out in 30 mile per hour minimally controlled traffic than it would be backing out in an all-way controlled intersection, and that it would be safer.
Right, I understand that, but what he brought up was they would lose the ability to park on the street there. And you had a couple pictures of them parked on the street, I believe. Am I right? The first couple pictures show, unless that was a car going through the intersection. Maybe that's what it was. Like the 1, 2, 4th picture showed a car. And I was wondering if that's parked there kind of thing, or it was a traveling car?
I think the series of images he produced are showing basically, they seem to be suggesting that the vehicle that was entering the intersection from 91st Street failed to yield to someone who was northbound on Winston Way.
Not that there was a car parked there.
Right.
Right. That was a failure to yield.
Okay.
I was actually sitting there reading the report.
But are the people who live there on this right here know that they're going to lose parking on the side of their street?
Yes.
Because you can't park within 30 feet of a stop sign.
He doesn't park there now because he feels it's unsafe.
Right, of course, yeah, that would be, okay. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments on item 5D? Sir?
If you could come back up, please. Appreciate it. This is really difficult. And what I'm looking at is a real situation that probably would take a combination of elements to resolve your problem. I think it's been more than a couple of years ago, one of the four-way stops northbound, I can't remember which one of the two it was approved. And if it was the one at 93rd Street, I believe, is that 93rd, 94th, I'm trying to read 94th Street, the speed study showed 30 miles per hour through there?
The 85th percentile, yes.
So the message is that stop signs, at best, in a neighborhood, will slow traffic down, hopefully, at the stop sign. There's no guarantee that people are going to stop. There's no guarantee in the middle of the night, some young kid going crazy is going to pay any attention to it at all. It's, I think, the condition of the street where it is that's causing the problem. I don't think stop signs are going to solve your problem. Looking at this, I can't tell if there's any kind of painting in the street, bars to slow people down, visual images to slow. There's
a center line stripe through the S-curve on Winston Way.
You know, is it possible to do street painting that would alert drivers that at night something reflective? I don't know. I'm looking for a solution for these folks.
At this point in time, what we can do is we'll go ahead and post an advisory warning sign for southbound traffic that indicates that they're entering an S-curve, and we'll put a supplemental 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign below that. I mean, it's warning in nature. It's not a regulatory thing, but at least it'll provide people with some guidance to the fact that they need to be running at a slower speed to navigate the curves.
You know, typically in neighborhoods where you have a curve like that, it's a gift because it does slow traffic down. What I'm understanding is they're leaving the roadway, and they may only be going 25 miles an hour.
May I comment to that?
Pardon me?
May I comment to that?
Absolutely.
It is a gift for many neighborhoods, and we thought it was a gift when we first bought our house that this would be a major help to live there. What we found from living there is the slowdown and the calmness that's coming from that curve is on the other side, outside of the neighborhood. They're coming in from a slow speed, they're approaching it at a slow speed, they're exiting the curb at a slow speed. On our side, in the residential area, you have cars that are most of the time going 30 or faster, approaching this dangerous curve that's immediately north of the intersection, while cars are also coming through, approaching the intersection left of center because they can't stay in their lane because the curve is too sharp. So what's happening is we're on the chaotic side of it, and the calm side of it is on the other side.
Mr. Allen, this is an intersection I'm very familiar with. It's in my ward, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. I've been on this road numerous times, and I have seen firsthand what you have come before and explained to us. What concerns me is I don't want to approve this, and you leave here thinking that this is going to really take care of the problem. Currently, it's posted 25 miles an hour, and we've got folks that are exceeding that. With the pictures that you brought before us today, currently there's a yield sign there that was ignored, and I'm just concerned that we're going to find the same thing with the stop signs. Your stop signs will stop the conscientious driver. I'm not sure that in your own situation where your house was hit, it doesn't look like he was doing 25 miles an hour or at 3 o'clock in the morning, how a stop sign would really keep him from doing what he did. I'm sorry it happened, but I'm not sure that an all-way stop is really the solution.
Okay, any other?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
But looking at the pictures here, this looks like it's the definition of a reverse turn, not a reverse curve. Is that fair to say? If it's less than 30 mile an hour advisory speed, it can't be a reverse curve according to MVTCD. So it's more like a reverse turn. So are we sure the drivers understand the degree that this roadway is in right there, how sharp it is, and that it's really that they've been warned in advance that it is a reverse turn and probably not even more than 20 mile an hour advisory speed?
Which is what he was saying. He was going to put a advisory, right, Mr. Chai?
Yes.
You were talking
I'll do
about.
that. Would you bring up page
What do
11?
I personally don't feel safer or comfortable taking that curve more than 15 miles an hour.
Well, I mean, that can be established. There's ways to establish the proper speed for advisory speed plates on a curve, but it just appears that it needs to be delineated more, or at least the road user needs to know it's there, rather than to restrict the stop sign. What do you think? That's my take on it. I mean, you've already told us that someone's coming through the curve either too fast or across center line or something. So if somebody doesn't know anything, they've tried to put center line pavement markings down.
The problem with the curve is that it starts about 1 car length away from the intersection.
Yeah. So it needs.
So it's directly affecting what's being put out through the intersection, what's coming into the intersection.
Yeah. So.
And that's why we feel stop signs would be better, because it would allow them to approach into a curve more safely and also exit out of the curve more safely with an anticipation of a stop sign.
Well, it's either that or you give them enough advance warning with the advisory speed plate and the warning signs that they have got a time to adjust their speed.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am?
A question for Stuart quickly. When you look at the map or the aerial view, and where you go, page 12, where you can see down to 98th Street, just looking at this, it seems like it's not beyond reason to expect a stop at this point. There's an all-way at 98th and then 94th. To me, it seems like this would be a reasonable next location for an all-way stop because of the activity on Winston. I mean, is that...
Well, in this particular case, especially if you look at the traffic volumes, I mean, there's a reasonable volume that comes in from 91st Street, but the streets to the west of there, they're short. They do provide access, to a good number of residents, but it's not like a street like 98th Street or something like that, which almost functions like another collector through the neighborhood. 91st Street doesn't quite function that same capacity. So you could justify maybe putting in all-way stops at locations where, like, collecting intersecting collectors in a neighborhood would cross paths, but this is more of an instance of a collector street being Winston Way crossing with a residential.
Okay, any other discussion about item 5D? Yes, sir.
Is there any tool that would provide flashing LED lighting on that yield sign?
Well, no. There are manufacturers now that do produce what are called LED enhanced signs. So, I mean, one could be used in that particular application. I mean, we don't have any LED enhanced signs for yields. I mean, we've got just a few for stops, but it's nothing for yields at this point in time. They're a rather expensive feature, and it's not to say that it wouldn't be a worthwhile investment when you consider the sheer number of regulatory signs that there are across the city. It'd be a substantial public investment, however.
But it's possible a neighborhood could obtain one.
It's possible that one could obtain one, make a donation to the city, and it could be installed, yes.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Stuart, would, whether or not we vote for always stop control, would the dangerous curve sign, is that already planned to be put in, with the 20-mile-an-hour?
After this meeting, we're going to have service requests put out for that. We're going to post S-curve warning signs on both approaches with advisory speed plaques.
Okay. So that is happening regardless of how we vote?
It's happening right after this meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Would it be possible to table this vote until these signs are put up and see the result from that?
I would say it's always possible to, but if you look at the overall collision experience, I mean, collisions occur very seldom here, so you'd be tabling this item probably, even if no other regulatory signs were put up or any warning signs, if you were wanting to table this until such point in time where you can say that, well, we haven't had a collision here since, in like 5 years, which is kind of what you're looking at currently. Because like I said, the collision experience that you're seeing at this particular intersection is away from the intersection. It's not actually inside the intersection. So to table the item and then to see how something like that performs, you won't have a reasonable amount of time in which to sample its effectiveness. It'd have to be a long time.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
The traffic that's coming across, I mean, it's an easy way to get through a curve. You just find the simplest route, and that's down the middle of the curve, which I think is problematic for them. I think there's a lot of evidence of that going on here, too. It's just one element. I get the sense that, well, I'm not going to say that. So is it possible, if you have that in mind, to already do, regardless of this vote, if one of the issues is not staying on your correct half of the road while you're in the curves and bringing more attention to the curves, is there ever a time, when there's those devices that are like a little lump?
Raised pavement markers.
Yeah, that's better than lump. I like that. So could you put lumps down the middle of the road to bring, it's almost like the things on the highway, those sleepy driver marks, where it brings some sort of attention when you are going outside of your prescribed driving area. Is there any merit to that kind of thought, to just bring attention to that center division?
It's always possible to. I mean, you can see that because typically speaking, the city is very rarely uses pavement markings inside residential areas. But you can see there's obviously been, past track record for this area because it's got the double yellow center line markings, which is kind of an unusual thing for a neighborhood collector street. Raised pavement markers certainly are an option. But one thing you'd probably want to go back to is if you look at like page 1 of this report, you'll see that you've got that the 85th percentile speed going through the S-curve is 20 miles an hour, and the top speed that we recorded during that study was 25, was the posted speed limit. You get south of the intersection, where you've got kind of a straight section between there and 93rd Street, and it jumps by 10 miles an hour. I mean, so you're running an 85th percentile there of 30, and I think the highest speed we recorded in that section was 36. So, I mean, you're already looking at, there are a few people that, where the road is straight, have a tendency to make up time, for lack of better things to say.
One comment I'd like to make about the speed study, if it's okay.
Pardon me?
One comment I'd like to make about the speed study, if it's okay. With that speed study you were referring to, with the 20 mile per hour, again, I believe that, and I may be wrong, but I believe that speed study was taken north of the intersection, outside of the neighborhood, at the exit of the curve.
Okay, actually, it was done through the curve itself. We're trying to get speeds
through the curve?
Vehicles.
Okay.
Yes. And that's a composite study of everyone approaching from either direction.
Okay.
Okay. Sir?
Just to make sure I understand, the problem really is not crossing the center line as far as the collision history. That's really, I mean...
That's correct, because we don't have any records of head-on type collisions.
Okay.
It's roadway departures, and it's usually like single vehicle type instances. So that makes it kind of an oddity for this area.
Okay, so it's one car accidents running off the road.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments on item 5D? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5D from Commissioner Yonkel, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Item is approved. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Item 5E. Corey Lips, P.E., Project Manager, Cardinal Engineering, Inc., Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73102, and the Traffic Management Division. Consider request to 1, remove 8 5-hour metered parking spaces from the south side of West Main Street from approximately 30 feet west to 230 feet west of the west curb line of Fred Jones Avenue. 2, remove the 30-minute commercial loading zone from the south side of West Main Street from approximately 230 feet west to 330 feet west of the west curb line of Fred Jones Avenue. 3, establish a commercial loading zone on the south side of West Main Street from approximately 45 feet west to 135 feet west of the west curb line of Fred Jones Avenue. 4, establish a full-time passenger loading zone within the same limits as the commercial loading zone. And 5, establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the south side of West Main Street from approximately 135 feet west to 165 feet west of the west curb line of Fred Jones Avenue. So if I could have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and make sure to fill out one of these.
Yes, sir. Corey Lips, Cardinal Engineering, 1015 North Broadway Avenue, on here on behalf of the applicant. It is a necessity for the hotel to have the commercial, passenger, and valet loading zone access granted for the hotel operations. I understand that the staff report recommends keeping the remaining on-street parking spaces as the 5-hour metered parking. The hotel is agreeable to the staff's recommendations, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Staff, is there anybody else that wants to speak about 5E? Okay, staff input, please.
Okay. Basically, Mr. Lips has submitted a series of traffic control change requests in this particular area. That'll be in conjunction with redevelopment of the Fred Jones Manufacturing Building as a 21C museum hotel. What's being looked at is relocating the commercial loading zone, adding a passenger loading zone use to it. Staff is involved in this request in as much as we're recommending that the passenger loading zone be made available on a full-time basis, since in the next item it's the applicant has submitted a request to have this passenger loading zone used for valet purposes, which is typically done in the evenings. And ordinarily speaking, the city's parking restrictions, unless they're posted as being a permanent restriction like no parking anytime, they're basically from 8 to 6 weekdays, excluding Sundays and holidays. So basically, that takes weekends out of it, too. So action on this particular matter will be at the discretion of the commission. A motion for approval for this item should note that the passenger loading zone should need to be effective on a full-time basis. And we would have, as Mr. Lips noted, it'd be our preference to maintain metered parking in this particular area, because if metered parking is removed, it'll just encourage all-day parking in an area. Chances are where the future user of this site would probably prefer to have some turnover as opposed to, individuals who would just seek to park, find a free all-day parking spot in the downtown area. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion for item 5E?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the applicant's request with the staff's provision that the passenger loading zone be in effect on a full-time basis. And, Stuart, if necessary, to include that we retain the 5-hour metered parking.
It's always fine to make note of that in your motion.
With the two comments.
I'd like to include that in the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5E to incorporate the two comment items. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Yockel. Do we have any discussion on item 5E? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5E with the two comments from the staff, from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Yockel. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. Next item, 5F. Corey Lips, PE, Project Manager, Cardinal Engineering, Inc., Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73102. Consider the addition of a valet loading zone within the passenger loading zone on the southwest side of West Main Street from approximately 45 feet west to 135 feet west of the west curb line of Fred Jones Avenue. Sir?
Corey Lips, Cardinal Engineering, 1015 North Broadway Avenue. Again, the hotel needs the use of the commercial and passenger loading zone and the valet use of that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Staff input?
Okay. This item was written up separately because it's predicated on the approval of a passenger loading zone, because a valet loading zone is kind of a supplemental use to a passenger loading zone. In this particular case, we'd note that since the passenger loading zone was approved for full-time use, action on this item would be at the discretion of the Commission. This would be a good ancillary use for the passenger in the commercial loading zone. It's typically an activity that doesn't interfere with ordinary uses for commercial loading purposes, because it's something typically run in the evening. So it should be this request should be just fine.
Thank you very much. We have a motion concerning item 5F.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the applicant's request and establish a valet loading zone within the passenger loading zone as requested in the application.
Okay, we have a motion to approve 5F from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Yonkel. Do we have any discussion on item 5F? Okay. Sir?
Just have a fact question. When this body approves a valet parking zone, is the owner or the applicant then required to go get a permit to operate it as a valet?
Yes, you have to apply for and receive approval of an administrative permit, an administrative revocable permit to operate a valet service.
Then that would be permanent. The permit?
It's annually renewable.
Okay, any other discussion on 5F? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5F from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Yonkel. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5G, Oklahoma City Police Department Permits and ID Unit, to consider the revocation or the suspension of the certificate and business license issued to J&K Enterprises and Inputs, LLC, doing business as Thundercab, for an alleged violation of Section 56-3 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010. Yes, sir. If I can have your name.
Good afternoon. Sergeant Leroy Dancy with Oklahoma City Police Department, Vehicle Fire Inspector. The next three items on the agenda will all involve J&K Enterprises. They're the parent company of three DBAs, Oklahoma Shuttle, Thundercab, and Lightning Express Shuttle. So I will tell you that we received a complaint last month in which I investigated. I'm going to try and clear some of this up. There's probably some terminologies and agencies that you may be unfamiliar with, so before I get into the actual details of the investigations, which you should have, I'll try and clear up some of the terminology and agencies. The agencies that were involved in this investigation were federal, state, and of course our city. On the federal level, we have the United States Department of Transportation. They're involved in the passenger carriers, and they issue federal license. The commonly noted as or called USDOT, to to try and simplify, either call it that or try and keep it simple by calling it a federal license, if I can remember too. The federal license involves passenger carriers as far as pickups for our terms, vehicle for hire companies that pick up across state lines, state jurisdictions. For example, if they're a licensed company in Oklahoma, they're still with a federal license able to pick up in Texas, Kansas, or wherever else. This license is, the number that they're given is a DOT number, which is basically kind of an identifier for the company so they can be aware of who this company is. In addition to this federal number that they're issued, they also issued a motor carrier number. The motor carrier number is more of the operating authority type number, which actually is kind of like a suspension or revocation or authorized to operate. The federal license is renewed biannually, so twice a year. And any time during all this, if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop and ask. The next agency that we'll go to is the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, which is the state agency that issues the vehicle for hire licenses. These are required, if you're a vehicle for hire company, you're required to have the federal DOT number, the federal license number that's issued to them, and then the OCC, the Corporations Commission, will also issue a PIN number, which is kind of similar to the motor carrier number for the federal license. These annual, for the Corporation Commission, the permits or licenses are renewed annually, so every year they have to renew this license. You can't have an option to renew. Once you get into the renewal stage, you can have the option to renew every 2 years or every 3 years. But that being said, if you file strictly, and this is strictly for the state, without a federal license, even though you may opt to do 2 or 3 years, you still have to submit all your documentation to the state every year, as far as letting them know how many vehicles are in your fleet, and they issue what we call decal numbers for those vehicles. The federal level does not do that. They do not issue decals. It's just at the state level. Okay. If you file for interstate, which is the federal license that you issued, if you have that license, that DOT number, and you file for the state, you are still required to pay it that initial payment for that first year for the state, but every year afterwards, you're not required to make payment, but you are still required to keep your federal license up to date. The federal license is not reviewed by the state. I'm going to assume, this is strictly an assumption, that since you have your U.S. DOT and you tell them, they take your word for it one way or the other, whether you have your federal license or not, despite you having that DOT number. Okay. Now, with our city licensing, if you have a federal license and state license, of course, you're still required through our ordinances to file for a vehicle for hire permit number or vehicle for hire license. Kind of like the state, if you do have a federal license or a state corporation commission license number, we basically take your word for it at having that. So, and at the time of these complaints that we'll get into, there was no requirement by our city to receive documentation for that. So there will be no documentation that says we verified at the time, because we were not required to do so at the time. In addition to that, every year we have our annual vehicle inspections. Those decals that were issued by the Corporation Commission, we review as part of the inspections. And we'll kind of get into that, but briefly, out of all the companies, when I became vehicle for hire inspector back in 2013, all the vehicle for hire companies at the time had these decal numbers except for the 3 companies owned by J&K Enterprises. As far as the agencies are concerned that will be involved, do you have any questions? Okay. That being
I
said,
have one question. Will you repeat what you just said at the time you became in this position? This was the only entity that did not have, just repeat. I want to make sure I heard.
This was the only, J&K, the Oklahoma Shuttle, Lightning Express, and Thundercab is the only companies that, at the time I became inspector, was not required to have those decals, and it was due to the assumption of they had their state and federal license.
Got it.
Okay. Any more questions on that? Okay, that being said, we'll go to the items of the complaint for Thundercab. Last month, on March 20th, I received a complaint basically about all 3 companies, which include this item for Thundercab. The complaint for Thundercab was that they were not authorized to operate, or their federal license was listed as not being able to be authorized. They were not authorized to. In addition to that, I also received a picture of one of the Thundercabs that had the DOT number, the federal license number, written on the side of it. I will say that during this investigation, our records, as far as the vehicle is concerned, did not match the same vehicle that was in the picture, but the picture that I received appeared to probably have been a picture probably from some advertisement. So it's possible that it may have been in their fleet at one time, or it might have been strictly just an advertisement vehicle. Our records verified that the vehicle that we inspected, and we did have that driver, Thundercab number 100, come down to our office, and that vehicle did match our records. So vehicles itself. Now, during the investigation, I contacted the federal licensing agency and also went to their website, in which they have listed the companies that are authorized to operate. At that time, Thundercab was listed with the federals as having an active DOT number, federal license number. However, their motor carrier license had been, was listed as not authorized. I was informed by the federal agency that they had a complaint in 2011. They tried to get in contact with the Thundercab as far as advising them of a 10-day notice to basically battle against, or if they had any disagreements about the complaint, that was their chance to submit it. There was no response by Thundercab in 2011, in which case their motor carrier number was revoked at that time. So they've been, as the federal licensing has been revoked since 2011. If you notice also in the report, it initially stated it was unauthorized. I later checked it again to kind of keep tabs on if they may have been updated prior to this hearing. During that time, it was also listed as not having or not complying with the biannual laws. So every 2 years in which they were told to renew their license, they did not update. As of today, this morning, I checked the website again, and it went back to just completely just not authorized to operate. And I will say that I also contacted our airport, Will Rogers Airport, to see if any Thundercabs were operating at that time. and they were operating today out at the airport, even after notice has been sent to them about this hearing. So the question, basically the question, or the investigation here basically states that the federal license was not authorized as far as that's concerned. Now, during this investigation, because the Corporation Commission is also involved, I contacted them as well. They stated they were unaware of the change that of Thundercab's federal license. That right now is under an investigation with their agency to see if any violations has been made on their level. But as of today, they were unaware of that. But I will say that I also contacted them at their website that they listed them as the Corporation Commission's website and listed as an authorized to operate. That being said, I checked with them, checked to see what their status was. They said in 2010 is when they went to intrastate, which means strictly operating within the state. So currently, even though their federal license, in which we partially base our licensing requirements for us, the state says they are authorized to operate as far as their level. But they did list them as having a federal license, so I'm not sure if they weren't very clear on whether or not they could explain to me, does that immediately affect them as far as licensing them as strictly a state or having also their federal license. And that's what they said was part of their investigation. But our requirements is that the vehicle for hire companies must comply with the federal and state levels as well. So it's kind of like a trickle-down effect for Thundercab of their federal license is not authorized. That can affect their state license and our city license as well. So once we completed the investigation, we forwarded it to the commission. I go for a suspension or revocation hearing. I go to be put in your hands.
Okay, just the one question I have from the data that you provided. Well, I didn't hear one part of it. You said the state on their website shows that they have a valid license and it just says that.
Yes, the state, kind of like the federal government, has a list on the Corporation Commission's website of authorized companies.
Okay.
They are listed, Thundercab is listed as an authorized to operate.
Right.
They listed them that, like I said, they were told, as well as our department was told, that they had a federal license. And I probably should have mentioned this, is that they were not required. The state was required. The requirement was under the assumption that their federal license was good, which is the case. They were not. Weren't required to pay their annual renewal as long as they submitted their paperwork. So it appears that their paperwork itself, as far as updating insurance and things like that, they have kept up to date. However, they had not submitted any federal licensing saying that they're current with their federal license. So at this time, the state is just kind of was just under the assumption that their federal license was good, so since they don't follow up on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was looking for, just to make sure that that was clear.
Right.
That on the website it shows it's an authorized company at the state level, but now that you've informed the state, they're now doing their investigation to check that status.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Staff input or anything, or council input?
If there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I think the sergeant did a very adequate, terrific job in his investigation and was able to present you with the facts available. If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, do we want to wait to see if anybody else wishes to speak? Or
Had a question for the sergeant.
okay, if you have a question. Okay, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Since you've been in charge of this unit since, what, 2013?
Yes, sir.
Have they put any new vehicles in service since then?
Every month we get a list of vehicles, and they have had new vehicles that have been inspected.
Have they included that federal number?
I'm sorry?
Have they included that federal USDOT number?
Yes, all the vehicles do have the USDOT number written on the side of it. I will add that I also checked their website, and the website lists the USDOT number as well.
Okay. Ma'am?
Is there a representative of the, okay.
That's what I was going to offer
just
up.
want
Once we
to,
were done, any questions on the data that's provided, then I was going to offer it up for anybody else to speak on the item. Okay? Anything else here? Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? Yes, sir? If I could have your name, your address, remember to fill out one of these cards after you're done, and you have up to, there, the hot one. And you have up to 5 minutes, please.
Okay. My name is Carl Gaskins. My address is 4345 Southwest 29th Street. That's the work address. I'm here to explain Thundercab's end of this, or J&K Enterprises.
Okay, did you say that again?
Yes, I'm here to explain our side of it. We're Thundercab.
So you're representing?
I'm representing Thundercab.
Thundercab, okay, good.
Okay. As you've probably gathered from what he was explaining, this is very complicated. You got the USDOT, you got FMCSA, you got the MC number, you got Oklahoma Corporation Commission. Our numbers are USDOT numbers. They were showing active. You go to the website, it says active. We thought we were in compliance. We're finding out now we're not in compliance. The MC number, which we're finding out we don't even need to have, had a glitch in it. It was set up, somehow had the name Oklahoma Shuttle on it instead of Thundercab. Because of that, it held the other stuff from going through the renewals and whatnot. And so it's kind of stalled there, even though the website was showing active. So we thought we were okay there. Found out about this whole thing. We received some registered letters, not last week, but the week before on Friday. We got the details about what the complaint was. When the agenda for this meeting went online, we was able to read what the complaint was against us, because the registered letters only stated that it was a violation of Chapter 56-3. Since then, we've been in contact with the USDOT and FMCSA, and we've got that straightened out. Our Oklahoma Shuttle Lightning Express stuff is all in order now, best we can tell. We should have the final word on that as early as maybe this afternoon, hopefully no later than tomorrow on that. The Thundercab thing, with that having the motor carrier number on it, we've got to get that corrected. It's in process also. We've got all the paperwork filed. Could be as much as 2 or 3 weeks, probably less than that, because we've got people working on it directly over at ODOT, or not Oklahoma, but USDOT. And so that's in process. It's the short period of time that we've known about this violation, the details of it, that it's why we're at the point we are. If we had another week, maybe most of this would all be resolved. Our Vice President, Mr. Rafaq, went over to the Oklahoma Corporation Commission on Friday. We've got everything with them all cleared up. We paid all of our fees and everything that's got to be, so we're all up to speed with them. And it's just, it's a matter of awareness. This process is very, very complicated. It's not something that you can just learn about in 5 minutes. It takes much longer, and even then there's a lot of confusion. We're finding this out as we talk to different representatives and the different agencies that some things are just not clear cut. It's like right now, we're up against the thing that the online renewals will not allow us to get our DOT numbers renewed online. We have to do it through an agent at their agency, because there's something that says they will not issue a USDOT number to a company that carries passengers of, vehicles 1 to 8 passengers. You have to have a higher capacity than that to get a DOT number. They recognize that the state of Oklahoma requires that, and so they've got a process you got to go through, but it's once again very confusing. There was a complaint in there about, I don't recall you addressing this, but the DOT number on one of our shuttles was wrong. That's all been corrected. It's all straightened out. It's just, once again, a matter of compliance here, and we're getting it done.
Okay, so for this item, dealt with just Thunder Cab, correct? Which was the US DOT.
US DOT.
That you had a number.
Please hold questions
Okay.
after a motion. Until after a motion.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other comments or anything?
No, I just want to let everybody here know that we are on the road to getting 100% compliance, and it will be done in very, very short order, just as fast as the process will get it done.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other staff input or anything? Comments? Nothing? Okay. We're ready for a motion. Okay. Can I have a motion concerning item 5G?
Is a legitimate motion to, I feel like there's pieces we still don't know. There's this pending state thing that Sergeant Dancy talked about.
If I may.
Yeah.
With the city licensing, we have licensed the company under the understanding that they are licensed properly according to our ordinance with the state or the federal license. From what they're telling us now, you can make a motion of whether or not you believe they are or not, or what you'd like to make your motion on.
Which is basically to approve or deny.
The motion should likely be should they either motion that the company should be revoked or suspended or should not be revoked or suspended based upon a determination that a violation of Chapter 56.3 has occurred.
I make a motion that the license be revoked or suspended for violation of Section 56-3 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code. And
Would you like to make a decision now, revoked or suspended? Okay.
I'd like for further investigation to determine whether it be...
Okay, let's see if we can have a second, and then it will need to be determined before you can have a vote on that.
Right, because there's an or there. Correct.
So maybe amend your motion.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to suspend or revoke the business license for Thunder Cab.
Based upon a determination that a violation of Chapter 56.
Based upon a determination of a violation of Chapter 56.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's the motion from Commissioner Schuline. We have a second. Second. Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Littlefield. Okay. Now we can have questions and talk up here. So if I could ask a question for Carl. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you presented to us. You said that in 2011, you got the US DOT number in place of getting a state number, so that way you can go out of state and do things out of state.
No, the state doesn't issue a number that I can tell. Maybe some regulations have changed between then and now, because I wasn't doing it back then. But
right.
The state requires we have a DOT number. We have to get that number from the US DOT. Then, once we have that number, the OCC uses it for their process.
But you don't have to get a license from the state if you have the US DOT.
Okay.
Am I right or wrong?
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
All companies need to get the US DOT, but there's then the second number that they obtained for Thundercab, or that was the motor carrier, the MC number, in place of the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, the state number, that's called a PIN. So they got the federal MC number instead of the OCC PIN number.
Okay. And that requires an annual renewal?
On the MC number, I think it's biannual or something. But
Biannual. So once you get your ODOT, your US DOT number, you're good. That's a number, that's your number.
The US DOT number is for all companies, but then the MC number is the biannual renewal. You have to renew that biannually.
Okay.
Yes.
So then, is Thundercab or J&K Enterprise aware that every 2 years you have to redo the paperwork? Or were you aware?
Well, we know what we're supposed to be doing now. This has been a learning process for me. Okay. Some of the people we had on staff way back in 2011 are no longer with the company now.
Right, okay.
So I don't know about all that. I know now they're telling us that we do not need an MC number. The fact that it's even there is kind of holding up the process and making things more complicated. Interstate licensing does not have to have an MC number, and it makes the process hard. That's why.
So what does the MC number give you all?
Is that now?
What is you're saying the MC number?
MC.
MC
like
number.
Carrier.
Okay.
Okay.
You're saying it's not required?
We're not, our status does not require us to have that.
Because you're not going out of state. You're not picking up out of state.
We're intrastate.
So therefore you needed the state number.
Right. Well, once again, it's the number we, yeah, you're talking about like the PIN numbers you talked about. I believe so.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what number that is. I know that the OCC processes the paperwork and they get it all right.
Well, that's the one that you get the decal for the car, correct?
The PIN number would come from OCC for the company, and then the decals are attached to that number.
Right. And once again, we got all that ironed out on Friday. I didn't do it myself.
So
all that's done. And
so you're going that route now with the Thundercab stuff, right, compared to the US DOT MC license, if you want to call it that doesn't require a sticker on the car.
We were at some point misinformed on how this whole process works, because you got so many pieces that have to fit together.
Sure.
And all along, you know, the DOT number was saying active, and it looked good, but then when you look at other stuff, the problems come up where you see something.
So you have a DOT number, US DOT number,
yes,
which is required for everybody.
Everybody's got to have one, even though the federal government says taxi cabs, shuttles, we don't have to have them.
Correct.
But because
so you have the US DOT.
Then they have to issue it.
Okay. And then for 2 years you operated with the MC license, if you want to call it that didn't require you to get a state decal.
Apparently, yeah. There was a presumption that we weren't required to get the state decals
because
after the first year. We had to buy them for all the vehicles we had for the first year, and then there was some provision that said you don't have to renew because of the MC number, but the MC number was no good because of somehow paperwork got mixed up. When that MC number was issued, my understanding is that it had Thundercab on it, but somewhere in the mix they got one of our other company names on it, and that just filed the whole thing up.
Okay, and so since you found out that this is all wrong, you went ahead and filed paperwork with who?
We filed paperwork. This paper's called an MCS 150. We filed one for each of the 3 companies that we operate.
With who?
With the US DOT. Or
DOT.
FMCSA, I think, is the agency, but it's all connected there.
To get what?
To get the statuses of our numbers up to date, because it was what they call a biannual update is really what was holding most of it up. There were some other issues, but that's resolved also. Right now we're just waiting on the Thundercab piece because that had the MC number on it that wasn't really required. So now they've got to go through an extra process to remove that from our DOT number, and then everything will go through.
So you're going to have a US DOT number.
Yes.
And this MC thing that allowed you to not have to get a decal from the state, you're doing away with that.
That's correct.
So you're doing away with this MC number from USDOT, okay, and you've submitted paperwork to fix that at USDOT or whoever
Yes.
that one company, the federal agency is. Okay? And you've submitted that paper, and you can provide a copy?
I've got copies.
Okay, very good. So then what have you done?
Okay, so we got that done. Then we went to the OCC.
OCC.
And I can't remember her last name, but the lady's name is Kenda we deal with.
Uh-huh.
And we got everything straight with her.
What's everything straight? What does that mean?
Well, we've got our status with the state corrected.
That you're not using the MC.
Right, she knows we will not be using the MC.
Okay.
We've paid our, the fees that were due, the renewals and everything.
Okay.
And I believe we took care of everything that she's asking for past. And
past couple of years to get caught up, okay?
And so everything there's good. We're just waiting on the final go on from the federal government that these numbers are done. It's just a matter of paperwork. We're waiting right now for the reply.
Okay. Which then the state at some point will give you the decals?
Yes.
And then you'll put them on the cars?
Yeah. Well, put them on the paperwork for the cars, yes.
Paperwork for the cars. Okay?
And if there's anything else that's...
And all this you've done in the since last week?
Since, I think it was Wednesday when we started.
Wednesday, when you got the notification of what exactly has been wrong.
Right, the fine points of the violation.
Okay? All right? That's all the questions I have, so let's see. Anybody have any questions for either of the two? Ma'am?
I don't think this is a question. I feel like there's a lot of... I need to hear from Sergeant Dancy that at some point he's got this list of boxes that J&K needed to do, and I need to know that all the boxes have been checked to satisfy what you say has not been satisfied so far. I feel like there's a lot of, we did this, I'm good there. I'm not being critical. There's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of verbal. I need so we don't have this again. There's a lot of, we assumed this and we thought this. That is messy. And I want to make sure you're doing what you need to have done to satisfy what he needs you to do, and that he can check his boxes. And then at that point, I feel like we're in good shape. Until that point, even if you've done a lot in the last 3 working days, until he sees the results of what you've done, it's not done from my vision on this. So I just want, until it satisfies what Sergeant Dancy needs, I feel like we're not satisfied. So I don't know how that plays into what we're doing here, but I feel like we're just allowing the same perpetual glitches to happen if we just go, well, he said he did this. It's fine. I don't feel like that satisfies the requirements here. So what will satisfy the requirements?
Well, if he provides you copies of all that's been turned in
I'm asking.
to the U.S. DOT and the state, and you know how long that process usually takes to get cleared up, that would be a start of a check mark.
Sure. Of course, I guess the question is for council.
Okay.
What is the litmus test and the desired result, and in what form for all the boxes to be checked so he is legitimately operating? Until that legitimate operating thing is provided, I feel like we're going to have, things need to be tidied up a little bit.
Let me answer your question as best as I can. If I do not, please let me know. I'd be glad to go into more details. From what I'm hearing you say, at this very moment, you do not have approval from the state to operate within the state. You do not have authorization from the federal to operate as a federal intrastate license either. Therefore, what we need is what we generally require actually at this commission level to give a license. We require proof that either of those things have been done. And what I'm hearing is there is not final approval at that point. And the reason Sergeant Dancy usually will not see that because it comes to you as a license issue. Sergeant Dancy's part of this comes into play because he received a complaint. He investigated the complaint and he brought it to your attention because you do not receive the complaints. That is his position. What he will see is once there is a state license or a federal license granted, whichever route you go, he will either see a certificate from the federal or he will see decals that are provided per vehicle from the state. Does that answer? Sure. I can go into further or? Okay.
I've got maybe a couple questions, and probably for staff and council. I read your I don't want to call it a letter, but your report, and it was very clear to me. It took 2 or 3 reads, getting all the acronyms and everything down right, but then I understood kind of how this works. And first of all, I do believe that every vehicle for hire licensed company in the city of Oklahoma City is required to have an address. Question. And I also read in your report that notices had been sent alerting Thunder Cab that this USDOT number had been expired. So I think it's all great when we're looking at fixing a problem, and it's very admirable, and it's what everybody wants to have happen. But my question today is, what went wrong? Why were these notices not given credit? And before you respond, I have one more question, probably for council. I don't have a full understanding of the structure of how all these bits and pieces of licensing work together, but I would imagine if an unlicensed vehicle for hire company had an accident and a claim, how their unlicensed stature would affect the insurance company's ability to pay that claim. And that's a concern to me.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Would the fact that an Oklahoma City vehicle for license company was not current and legally licensed, even though they had insurance, in the event of an accident, would the insurance company have a leg to stand on to deny a claim like that? Did it put the riders in harm's way? No?
I'm going to defer to the insurance aide.
There you go.
Our insurance expert on the commission. Ed, he's shaking his head no,
Okay.
so I will echo his, because he is definitely more of an expert in that arena than I in insurance, but do you have a follow-up?
Unless they intentionally misrepresented information, if they in good faith felt like that they were licensed, as far as the insurance carrier, okay? So they should be good on that unless it was an intentional misrep.
Thank you for the clarity. So how did these notices go unnoticed?
I really can't speak to that. I was not in a position where I was intimately involved in any of that back when 2011, I think the notice was supposed to have gone out. I just don't know what happened there. I don't know that we did or did not receive the notice. I do know that just as soon as we got the actual details of individual violations we're being told we are, that we did, we started addressing it immediately. I don't like to use the word ignorant, but I mean, basically that's what it was. We were not aware of all these violations. It's not an easy system to understand and to navigate, but we're getting it straight. Now, moving forward as an assurance that it's not going to continue, we are exploring looking at an outside company. There are some out there, they say they're for motor carriers, mainly for trucking companies and stuff, but they say that they will take care of this process and monitor it for you and everything. And checking out the possibility that we might contract with somebody like that, that they'll keep an eye on it and keep us straight. And I see why those companies exist, because this is not an easy process. There's too many little pieces. One little thing goes wrong, and then everything gets held up. That's what I'm learning.
Everybody good over here? Okay, sir. Question, when you received your certified letter, did you try to contact the sergeant?
What's it now?
When you received your certified letter from the city police department, did you try to contact the sergeant, or did you just wait?
I did call the office on Monday, because it was late Friday when we received them, and Sergeant Dancy was out of the office, and Sergeant Bales didn't really have the detail about what the problem was. He said something Sergeant Dancy was working on, so we immediately started looking around, and I spoke with Mr. Chai of the traffic division, and because I knew he's involved here, and he let me know that the agenda would be going up, and as soon as we got that agenda information, we immediately moved.
Okay. One other question, just for the sergeant. Do we know what caused the revocation with the USDOT back in 2011?
My understanding is that there was just a complaint. The details of the complaint was not made known to me. It was just, it was a complaint issued, and they issued a notice. And because they did not respond, their USDOT, or MC number rather, was revoked.
Due to a complaint that was unanswered?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Carl, you're a familiar voice and familiar face around these proceedings. And I'm just curious, how long have you worked for Thundercab? And what is your position now with Thundercab?
Right now, my official title is General Manager.
What man?
General Manager.
General Manager.
Call me now. And back in 2010, I came to the company as a driver. And then I moved into the office in early 2011, mainly overseeing the dispatching operations and that part of it. And it wasn't until last year that I moved into the position I'm in now.
Thank you.
Okay. So, yes, sir, you have a question, comment?
You referred to a Friday and a Monday. What are the actual dates, regarding receiving the certified letter and then having conversations?
Monday would have been, what, the 13th, I think? Is that correct? I'll look at my calendar real quick to clarify. But yeah, the 13th is when I contacted the vehicle for hire or permits and IDs office. But it was the 10th is when we received the certified letters. But the certified letters said that this proceeding was going to happen and we needed to be here. It said we violated Chapter 56-3. What's in there is, it could be a lot of things. It's very generic. It just says we're out of compliance of some sort. I didn't know the details of the out of compliance until the agenda went online and I was able to pull that information.
Okay. So any other questions for these two gentlemen? All right. Thank you. You guys can have a seat. Just to make it clear to me, if I could just talk it out loud, we have a motion to either suspend or revoke, and that's what's on the table, and that's what we're going to go ahead and vote on a little bit. But now to just talk about it a little bit, I believe there's other options that could be out there. We could hold this item for another month and see if all the paperwork gets done and the check mark, or, I mean, if that's an option, or the concern is it's such a violation and it's such a concern that they cannot operate until it's completely fixed and the check marks are all there. And I think that's what we need to think about now is it something, did something that happened, an oops occurred, it's trying to be fixed, it just can't get done in 2-3 days. Paperwork is going to be given, the process has started, we can wait and see, or do we want to make the revocation or the suspension pending the police department getting all the necessary paperwork, and then it's good to go. So I mean, there's that out there, and of course the risk would be on us if it would be not completely just shut down. You can't go do anything until that point. So counsel, please.
Since the motion has been made for revocation or suspension, I will point out there is a sub provision in the ordinance that we are working within that states that mitigating factors could be taken into consideration, as the chairman just mentioned, which are independent actions that are taken by the company to defer or prevent further violations. Those, if you find that mitigating circumstances have been taken, then those mitigating factors can be applied to either a decision about revocation versus suspension, the length of a suspension, or waiver of a suspension.
When you say waiver of suspension, meaning?
They should be suspended, but you're waiving.
Okay. So the rewording of the motion, as we said, we would have to clarify revocation or the suspension. The motion could be changed to something, a suspension that is wavered. Is that the right term? I'm sorry.
A waiver of suspension.
A waiver of suspension. Yeah, that's an option. Or it could be until it's all cleared up, they just won't drive, or they're completely out and they'll have to reapply in X amount of time. So those are some options that are on the table. Thanks for clarifying what I was trying to say.
Question for council. If we do suspend the license today, if the motion stands, at what point, I mean, is there an automatic reinstatement if they comply to the city's satisfaction, or do they, like the chairman mentioned, have to reapply?
It actually depends upon your action as the commission. If they are revoked, they would have to reapply for a business license and come back before you and be officially recognized. The suspension depends upon your motion, sir, whether or not you want to suspend until the next meeting, suspend until as the city licensing has compliance, a proof of compliance with our licensing office, which would not be Sergeant Dancy, it would be our licensing office. Sergeant Dancy would receive proof of the licensing through our licensing office and also through the decals. It could be suspension for 10 days, 20 days. It is up to your discretion.
Right, and that's if we act on that motion as is and
as
just clarified.
Yes,
right,
just to respond to his question as a suspension.
Correct, as a suspension. Or you could make the motion to suspend, what was the term again? I'm sorry.
A waiver of suspension.
Waiver of
based upon the independent action.
Based on the mitigating circumstances, and then tag in there saying next meeting, come and present that everything's fine or something. Nope. All right. Yep. Yes, sir. Well, let's make sure that we understand what we're talking about. We'll be with you in just a second. Yeah, yes, sir.
I guess I have an opinion that based upon, the representative of Thunder Cab had made the statement, he didn't like to use the term ignorance, but certainly among this panel, we are quite ignorant of exactly what we're even voting on or for, and, the complexity and understanding of really our authority and to what degree we have authority. I mean, we don't even fully understand that at this point. So I think it would, that sort of helps us understand the difficulty that he is having navigating through the interwoven, the way that the regulatory nature of how the federal and the state and the city are all working together. So based upon that, I'd like to give the guy more time, just from a perspective of I'm kind of a free market guy. So.
Okay, does anybody else have anything right up here that we need to discuss before we have another person talk? All right, come on up. If I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Sure. Hi, my name is Khalid Rifaq. I'm Senior Vice President at J&K. We own Thunder Cab, Oklahoma Shuttle, and Lightning Express. I just want to have a crack at explaining this issue to the Commission, maybe for future references. It's a confusing thing, but I think we have figured it out now. The US DOT that the issue is, by the way, it's not been revoked, it's been deactivated. Basically, what that means is send in the paperwork and we activate it. all these violations and stuff that we're talking about, it was probably a matter of $120 of paperwork to get everything activated. Now, the US DOT only comes into place when we go outside of state to do business, which we don't. We are intrastate business. We want to stay inside Oklahoma City. So that was just a matter of sending them the paperwork, which we did, but somehow we had now I'm talking about only Thundercab. I'll talk about the Oklahoma Shuttle and Lightning Express right after that. So on the Thundercab was the first company when we started, and at that time when we called FMCSA that we need a US DOT for the taxi cab, they said taxi cabs don't get a US DOT. We told them, please let us have it because Corporate Commission requires a US DOT. Going through so many days of send this, send that, send this paperwork, fax it to this person, fax it to that person, please give us a US DOT. They finally gave us a US DOT. They told us we need an MC number, which is for, again, interstate business. At that time, I guess we did not understand. We went ahead and purchased an MC number. It was like $150 or something. And then they started saying that, okay, now you have to get $5 million insurance because US DOT was for trucking. And then we had to explain to them, okay, no, we're not trucking, we're taxi. And then somehow they said, okay, fine, we'll take care of it. MC number stayed with our Thundercab US DOT. Now, later on, when we opened up our Oklahoma Shuttle and Lightning Express, they told us, hey, you don't have to get an MC number since you're intrastate, but you need UCR, which is Unified Carrier Registration, which now we're finding out that you don't need the UCR if you're intrastate. If you're interstate and you're not a trucking company, then you need the UCR. So all this time we had the UCRs for all three companies where the sergeant was mentioning that we did not have those little stickers. Those little stickers we should have had because we were an intrastate company. And we should have been buying those. Those are like $2, $3 for a sticker. Again, it's like a $30, $40 purchase. We should have been doing that with Corporate Commission all this time, but we were told we're UCR registered, so we don't need those. So that's what we had been presenting the sergeant, our UCR registration, that we don't need the stickers. Now we're finding out that if you're intrastate, you don't need the UCR, you don't need the MC number. You just need to buy those little stamps and put them in your paperwork and present it to the sergeant. So this is now after 5 years of dealing with US DOT and these trucking laws. We're now, after 5 years, we're figuring this stuff out, you know, because it's so confusing. But we've had to deal with FMCSA because the Corporate Commission says, hey, you have to have a US DOT. Taxis are not supposed to have a US DOT. So somehow we were the first ones to get that out from FMCSA that, hey, please give us a US DOT, take the money, please give us the US DOT. So we got it, and now we're finding out we never needed the MC number. Now, on the Thundercab side, again, they have not revoked the DOT. They have just suspended it, waiting for the paperwork, and that is because on the MC number, it says Oklahoma Shuttle. So now we have to change the name first on the MC number. Somehow Oklahoma Shuttle is on it. That has to be changed. That takes about 2 weeks. And once that's changed, we get our DOT number activated again. So it's deactivated, sorry. It's not been revoked. We still have the DOT number. It's not been taken away from us. It just needs to be reactivated. And we are in the process of reactivating it. So that's Thundercab that has that DOT deactivation issue. That should be resolved within 2 weeks. But other than that, we're up and up with everything else. As far as Oklahoma Shuttle and Lightning Express...
We'll just wait on those.
Sorry?
Just wait on that. We can only talk about this one item for right now.
So yes, with the Thundercab, the DOT reactivation, this will be done within 2 to 3 weeks. And it's just a matter of dealing with FMCSA, keep sending. They told us a few days ago, you can do this online. So we did it online. At the end, it says, if you're not more than 8 passengers, you cannot do this online. So now we're on the phone with them on the fax, and it's it's not like we saved any money or we were able to get away from some financial scheme in this. This is just all looking at about $60, $70, if not that. This activation of DOT, there's not even a charge for it. It's just a matter of filing your paperwork every 2 years, which we did, but since Oklahoma Shuttle name was on it, it just kept getting rejected. And the last notice we received was April the 8th of this month, and the one before that they're saying we received in December, which we don't know of. Other than that, there's no notifications. Maybe it's because at the time when we started, it was our personal home address that was given to the MC form, Roxborough Avenue. And maybe they might have sent some notifications there, we don't know. But we've been on the 4345 since pretty much day one. So maybe that's the reason why we didn't receive notification from them. But it's not, other than all the big requirements, we've always fulfilled them. This was just a matter of sending in some paperwork and maybe buying some stickers for maybe $100 that because of someone informed us wrong, we were registered with the UCR, which we didn't need it, and but now we're going to be in compliance 100% very soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so any other comments up here on the horseshoe? Okay, is there a... Okay, yes, go ahead.
Is it possible to describe the process that a vehicle for hire applicant needs to go through to like, there are steps that they have to accomplish before they come here for licensing, correct? Can you describe what those are as best as possible?
Okay. The company itself, not the driver, correct?
Not the driver.
Okay. The company itself has to have the requirements that we require within our ordinance for the business license, meaning they have to have already procured the insurance. They already have to have procured, if they're a taxi company, 5 vehicles. They already have to have their license with the state or federal. Either is accepted. The USDOT is for everybody, but what we're discussing here is the NC federal number and the PIN state number has to be presented to the sergeant, and he's able to go through his inspections, or also presented to you when you review the license. Other requirements are from if they're a taxi company, I'll just stay with taxis for now, that those vehicles have to be demonstrated to have a particular color scheme and the name is also not easily confused with another company of the same type. And those are just a very cursory view of what before they approach you for a license, what needs to occur.
So, in other words, it's not a completely complicated process to accomplish those steps before they are brought before this commission for request for licensing.
No, I think those steps are very clearly defined within our...
Very clearly defined.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. There is a motion. Is there a comment before I read the motion?
I think I would like to amend my motion.
Okay.
To include that the company be suspended until they come into compliance with our licensing division, is that right? In consultation with Sergeant Dancy.
Okay, so you want to amend your motion to say that we would, we would suspend J&K Enterprise doing business as Thundercab until all required paperwork and licensing has been shown to the city. Okay? Now let me go to my second. Second. You second that?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just show out a concern here. We're talking 3 weeks. Let me just ask a number. How many cabs are in operation right now?
So we have about 54.
Okay. So there's 54 cabs, which, if you recall, are not employees of this J&K or of Thunder. They're independent contractors. 54 cabs will not be able to be worked for 2-3 weeks or until the paperwork is done. And that's the impact that we're talking about here.
I appreciate that, and I would appreciate some more discussion at this point.
Okay. Sir?
The impression I got was this was very simple, it's an easy fix, and yet it's not been done. You just got through saying you've got 54 cabs, and you're talking about 54 families that income, it seems like with that magnitude, this would have been very important to be in compliance from the get-go. It's my understanding it's been out for 4 years. I would also like to ask the Sergeant, were you incorrect in telling us that this was a revocation in 2011? Because that's what I was hearing, that this wasn't a revocation, that this was just some oversight.
When I originally called the U.S. DOT, they did inform me that it was revoked in 2011 because of that complaint or the non-response to the letter about the complaint.
Okay, so, just a second. Any other discussion up here on the horseshoe about the amended motion? Okay. So, yes, sir.
I would like to add this. Even though this is very important and needs to be very serious, taken very seriously. I mean, when you get notification, it's got to be responded to. It can't just be, because once again, you're talking about 54 households that depend on you to do what you need to do. That being said, considering as much latitude as we have allowed the network companies, I would certainly understand if the commission were to allow a cab company as much latitude as what we have allowed them.
So, okay. Any other talk or discussion from up here? I understand you had your hand raised. Yes, ma'am.
Is it too late for one more question?
No, go ahead now.
The letter that went out in 2011 that wasn't responded to, that resulted in the revocation, do we know who it went to? And does that person, are they still an agent of the organization? I'm kind of trying to, I'm looking for some reason to say, we could have all had that same mistake. Do we know who it went to?
I will say when I called, they were very limited on the information that they gave me about the complaint itself. They just simply stated that they sent a letter, and there was no response. Like I said, they didn't tell me any details of the complaint. They didn't tell me any address or the name of anyone, whether it was Thundercab by company name or individual or anything like that.
Okay, and then I guess the same question would go to the Thundercab representative. Do you know who received the letter?
No, ma'am.
Were you a part of the company in 2011?
Yes, I've been part of the company since day one. No, we don't know where the letter went to or who it was sent out to. When did they send it out? Even if they did send us any notification, we don't know. But what we're finding out in the last few days is that it was just paperwork that needed to be submitted in, which we didn't.
Sergeant Dancy, do you know, was there any communication sent from the USDOT from 2011? Anything in this interim period? We're at 4 years of darkness on communication? Or was any interim notice sent? Look, we never heard from you? Or has this been a mysterious non-issue until you received a complaint last month?
As far as the USDOT is concerned, my understanding is that they sent out the notice. Since there was no response, they just immediately revoked their federal license. That being said, on the company side, it is a biannual license that should be renewed every 2 years. We're looking this year would make 4 years. So there
was an opportunity every 2 years for this to be rectified.
Yes, ma'am.
So we've had do you know what wasn't rectified 2 years after the 2011?
We are not sure, ma'am. It was, since when we started the company, dealing with FMCSA was the most confusing part that we ever had to deal with. And once we got activated, we were told that we are fine since we're not trucking. We don't have to worry too much about it. And since we never received any notifications and stuff, it just slipped through the cracks, is what happened. Since we are taxis, they're not really concerned about us anyways. And since we're not involved in interstate commerce and taxis, like I said, when we called them initially, they said taxis are not even supposed to have a U.S. dot. So somehow all this got slipped through the cracks, is what it is. If we were a trucking company, I'm sure they would have come after us heavy.
So the Corporation Commission requires a U.S. dot number to operate here as a taxi?
Yes, ma'am.
So it does matter?
Yes, so we have...
It does matter, right, here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No, I'm saying to them, it probably didn't matter that much. That's why they didn't come after us. Otherwise, if we were a trucking company, they would have hammered us with, notifications.
With more communication?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But just going forward, like the gentleman mentioned about the TNC companies, this is the thing. I don't know why taxis in Oklahoma City have to have a U.S. dot. I'm not really sure why we have to be with the Corporate Commission, because it would have been a very simple and a very beneficial thing to all the drivers if we didn't have to deal with OCC and if we didn't have to deal with FMCSA.
Well, all the other entities are currently, it seems to be operating successfully with those expectations. Yeah. So I don't think that's even up for debate today on the why-ifs and that. I feel you on that one, but that's not part of the discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just trying to understand how we've gone 4 years with this in its current state.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? How do you know that all other companies are operating within? Because the only way that we know that these folks aren't is because of the complaint that Sergeant Dancy received.
May I answer? We actually know all other companies within the city are within compliance because we've received state approval for those companies because they're all intrastate companies. This company informed us that they were interstate and that there was not a certificate from the federal license. So we have not been receiving a license from the federal level, whereas every other company that we've licensed does provide the state certificate, so we know that they are in compliance.
Okay. So, any other discussion going into the final reading of the motion? Yes.
So the suspension until all the boxes are checked. Are you saying that's 3 weeks is what you're thinking? Could it be sooner? Because it troubles me a little bit about these 54 families are sort of on my heart right now.
Yes, ma'am.
It would, so I'm human.
It could be done in a day.
Are you doing your part to ensure it's done in a day?
We are on top of it, and we are working. Our entire day, at least mine, is spent to fix this problem. From the past 1 week, that's all we've been doing. It all could be done in 5 minutes, but it's just that FMCSA takes just so long doing everything. And every step of the way we find out, oh, okay, this is not what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to do something else.
So you thought you were operating correctly until you received this letter that went out on the 7th, you received it on the 10th, and then you started working it on that day?
Well, when we received the letter on the 8th, we didn't know what it was about. It just said, come to the Traffic Commission, because you've done a violation.
So, and then at that moment you picked up the phone?
We called downtown. Sergeant Bales didn't know much about it. Then Monday, I think, Carl spoke with Mr. Stuart Chai, and then we found out what the whole thing is about. So from starting Monday up till now, we've been trying to
deal with
this issue.
Right.
Yes.
And so you received it on the 8th, and then the phone calls started on the 13th?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it well, what was happening between the 8th and the 13th?
It was the weekend, and we just thought it must be something else is what the cause of this invitation to come here. It must be some other issue.
Okay. Any other discussion, comments on the motion?
If we are given the time, this will be taken care of. Just like the way in the next 2, the shuttle ones, they will be taken care of either today or tomorrow. Shuttles will be in full compliance.
Okay. So, item 5G, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield, to suspend the certificate and business license issued to J&K Enterprise and Imports LLC doing business as Thunder Cab for a violation of Section 56-3 and keep that suspension in place until the city licensing office has all required paperwork to bring him into compliance. Correct? Okay? That's the motion, and that's from Commissioner Schuline, and that is with a second from Commissioner Littlefield. All right? Can I have your votes, please? Okay? Oh, wait a second here. Okay. So item is approved. The suspension goes in place for Thunder Cab until all the paperwork is put in place. Okay. We now go to item 5. Yes, sir.
Is it inappropriate to ask for like a 5-minute recess?
We can go one at a time as long as we keep a quorum. So you can go ahead and go while I read in the next one, as long as we keep a quorum in the room here. Okay, so item 5H, Oklahoma City Police Department Permits and ID Unit, consider revocation or suspension of the certificate business license issued to J&K Enterprise and Imports, LLC, doing business as Oklahoma Shuttle for an alleged violation of Section 56-3 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010. Yes, sir.
Okay. Once again, Sergeant Leroy Dancy, Oklahoma City Police Department. This case should be a little bit simpler because this falls simply just the state by itself, not so much as the federal government and their rules. But I will remind you that you hear the terms intrastate, meaning operating within the state only. Last month, we also got a complaint against Oklahoma Shuttle and Lightning Express as well, which is the next item. I will tell you that with maybe one or two exceptions, both items and the complaints are identical. So just keep that in mind. On March 20th, we got a complaint that, once again, the complainant visited the federal website for Oklahoma Shuttle and found, saw that their federal license said that they were intrastate only, meaning that they're operating within Oklahoma only. They had 3 other complaints that's more, or I would identify them as being more towards Corporation Commission violations than our city ordinances, although they may apply. One of them was if you have a U.S. DOT number that which we've established is assigned for the state regardless, that one of the Corporation Commission rules to identify and use to identify the difference between intrastate, which is state only, and interstate, which is federal, is that a state abbreviation on all vehicles must follow the U.S. DOT number, which case for our state would be OK. So all U.S. DOT numbers listed on vehicles should have OK written at the bottom of their vehicles if it is intrastate only. One of the complaints was that Oklahoma Shuttle did not have that OK, the state abbreviation at the end of their U.S. DOT numbers. Another complaint was, excuse me, is that that since Oklahoma Shuttle is listed with the state as Oklahoma Shuttle LLC, that the LLC was not listed with any other vehicles. Again, this is a requirement that was confirmed through the state that how your business is listed is how it should be named. So the LLC was missing, and they did state that this is required for the name of their vehicle be listed on the side of their vehicles. In addition, we had Oklahoma Shuttle. The last complaint was that Oklahoma Shuttle number 707 actually had Lightning Express's U.S. DOT number listed on it. I will tell you quickly that I did take a photo of that vehicle, and the complaint was verified that, yes, that U.S. DOT number did belong to Lightning Express, which is a different company name. That being said, I did contact Oklahoma Corporation Commission to find out Oklahoma Shuttle's status. In this case, they were licensed they got their intrastate, their state license in 2011. In 2013, Oklahoma Shuttle was listed as not authorized to operate. In Oklahoma Shuttle's investigation, it was canceled. Their license was canceled due to insurance. Now, I will tell you that our files, we did check for our files, and they have current insurance with their current insurance company. However, I guess it was not presented to the state, or there was a cancellation of their insurance by the state. I don't know if they switched insurance companies or not, but they said it was canceled. Their insurance was canceled, therefore they canceled their permit or their license. Our current, as far as the insurance is concerned, we did verify through the insurance company that Oklahoma Shuttle's license is valid at this time and was valid at the time of the complaint that was sent in. However, once again, we go back to the licensing issue of which was presented to us, that if one of the requirements is that if you had to be licensed with the state currently to receive a permit or a business license with the city of Oklahoma City. Since they were canceled in 2013, it was presumed that they were valid at the time of each license thereafter, which would be 2013 and 14 as well. So currently, once again, I reviewed their website, which does list the current authorized vehicles, and Oklahoma Shuttle is not on their currently authorized list. So it shows that the state still shows them as not being authorized to operate within Oklahoma City. Any questions?
Okay. I don't have any questions. Council, staff, any further input?
I'll await any questions from the commission.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Does anybody else want to speak on this item? We already have your paperwork. We'll just add you to it. You have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. I was just now checking my company emails. We've got a reply from USDOT on the Oklahoma Shuttle and Lightning Express issues. They've notified us that the paperwork has been received and processed. It doesn't say completed. I need to get with them on that, maybe check the website. But my understanding is all we needed was the paperwork to be processed, and then it's all fine, and the email clearly says that it has been processed. So pending me finding out and talking to somebody directly or finding some other things, the email indicates that we're done there. That's in compliance. And it's just recent update as of about 30 minutes ago. And once again, when we found out about these, we've gone into action trying to take care of it all. As far as any labeling that has to be done, we'll get that just as quickly as we're able to. I think there may be some decals we have to buy special that we'll have as soon as our supplier can get them. The one vehicle 707, that was corrected last week. As soon as we read on the agenda what the problem was, we got it in, got the numbers changed, we got photographs of it. It's all good to go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any comments or, well, no, we need motions now. Yep. Do we have a motion concerning item 5H?
Chairman, I'll make the same motion that they be suspended until such time as our licensing division has been, we've confirmed to the licensing division and Sergeant Dancy's office that they are in compliance.
If I may, to continue the motion as a violation of Chapter 56 has occurred. 56.3 has occurred.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to suspend to suspend J&K Enterprise and Inputs LLC as doing business as Oklahoma Shuttle for a violation of Section 56-3 until all the proper paperwork is submitted to the city. Okay, there's the motion. We have a second. We have a second from Commissioner Littlefield. Okay, any talk on this item? Oh, just a moment.
Carl, could you email that to the sergeant? Would you just, for verification? Thank you.
I'm sorry. I had something going on. What was that? I'm sorry.
Ask that Carl email what he just received from the state to the sergeant for verification.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion or comments on this point?
A question for Sergeant Dancy. You, at the end of your remarks, you said as of today, they're still shown to be, repeat the last thing that you looked up as of today. I just want to understand their status on this complaint as of today.
As of today, the Corporation Commission still shows them as not being authorized to operate.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion from up here? Comments from out there? Did you want to say something? Sir, yes.
Hi, my name is Khalid Rafaq with J&K, 4345 Southwest 29th Street. I just want to explain what the issue was with this Oklahoma Shuttle. As far as DOT was concerned, we were showing intrastate on the DOT website, so that was cool. But at some point, but we had registered ourselves as UCR, Unified Carrier Registration, because we were advised at that time, and this was a mistake on our end, that we need to be registered with UCR, so that's why we never had those little stamps to show, because we were Unified Carrier Registration. Now we're finding out that that's only for intrastate, so for intrastate you don't need that, you just need to purchase those stamps. So as of right now with the email, we're 100% with FMCSA, and Ms. Kinda at OCC, she has all the paperwork, all the check and everything, and she's just waiting on our e-forms to be sent from the insurance to them. At some point, the e-forms stopped coming to Corporate Commission, and they deactivated whatever the authority was over there, and that will be all fixed either today or tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Sir?
Sure. While you're, can I ask you to step back just a second? Did you indicate that you're operating intra-state? You're not operating interstate?
Yes, sir.
But on your website, you notice that you do list cities as Dallas, Texas with a rate of 357 and Wichita Falls 240. Am I confused?
That's, our older website was homemade. We made it ourselves. And there was a generic form in which you put in one value and it would generate rates to each and every small town. And I believe that included some of the out-of-town rates too. If you look at our new website, we have just launched our new website, and this was launched last week.
Okay.
There's no out-of-state cities mentioned, because this is not really an interstate business. There's Greyhound is for that. Taxis and shuttles are not for the going to Dallas and stuff. It's not, it's cheaper to buy a ticket than to take a taxi.
All right.
A follow-up question then. Then what website is the commissioner looking at if you just launched a new one? And I don't mean to, I just am looking for clarification and fact. That's all. So if you launched a new one and it doesn't show interstate activity, what is being shown on the public, to the public?
I think in our previous website, there was a huge list of all the cities in Oklahoma, and apparently it included some out-of-town cities as well. But that was a generic form we downloaded from the internet. You just put in one value in it, and it just populates everything else. And that wasn't to, to do, like, we don't have any interstate business taking place in our industry. So, and our intention was not to do interstate either. So that was a mistake on our end. But on our new website, there's no mistake like that.
Well, let me just throw out from an understanding that I have, when you're talking about interstate, that means picking up a fare from outside the state. If you pick up a fare in the city of Oklahoma City and want to go to Dallas, you can take them to Dallas. You just can't pick up a fare in Dallas and bring them back.
Yeah, interstate is if you want to pick up from here and take them outside of the state.
So even going out, you can't do it.
Picking up from the outside of state is not allowed because that's...
But you can pick up here
yes.
to take someone down to Dallas.
Not if you're intrastate. Like everybody in the city should be intrastate, I think.
Yeah.
If you're intrastate, you're not
clarify.
If you mind, I will clarify that, Chairman, that you are correct, and it was verified through the Corporation Commission that with an intrastate, which is a state license, that you can pick up within Oklahoma and travel across state lines to drop off. But that's just to drop off only. You cannot in turn say you drop off at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport and someone says, well, hey, I'm going to Oklahoma City. You cannot pick them up and bring them back to Oklahoma City. Right. And so you can pick them up in the state and drop them off out of state. You just cannot pick up out of state.
So if they were showing a fare of $300 down to Dallas, that was a fare to go down to Dallas. They just couldn't pick somebody up and show Dallas to Oklahoma City. And that's the same thing that goes with the Oklahoma licensing. That's why they need the Oklahoma license, so they can actually pick up in Edmond, not just Oklahoma City. That's my understanding, that by getting that state license, they could pick up anywhere, and because the boundaries are all real funny, especially here in the city with Edmond and these other little towns, to go pick up in Choctaw, they'd have to have the state license. That's why but yet they can go drop off anywhere. They can then take them out of state. Okay.
What is the domain of the current website? What's the difference between the old website and the new website?
It's the same domain, oklahomashuttle.com. Okay. But it just happens, we just launched it when? I think last week. We had been working on it for a few
Fully
months.
spelled out, oklahomashuttle.com.
oklahomashuttle.com.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Okay, good. All right, any other comments from up here concerning item 5H? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline. Timed out again, sorry. We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to suspend the J&K Enterprises and Imports LLC from doing business as Oklahoma Shuttle for a violation of Section 56-3 until all paperwork has been submitted to the city, and that's seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5I, Oklahoma City Police Department Permits and ID Unit. Consider revocation or suspension of the certificate/business license issued to J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, doing business as Lightning Express Shuttle for an alleged violation of Section 56-3 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010. Sir.
Once again, I'm Leroy Dancy, Oklahoma City Police Department. As I stated in the previous item, with one exception for Lightning Express, this investigation is identical to the Oklahoma Shuttle item. As far as the complaints of the DOT website or U.S. DOT website stating that Lightning Express is listed as intrastate, meaning operating only within one state, their LLC not being listed with their business name, along with the state abbreviation not following their U.S. DOT number, and Oklahoma Shuttle 707 having Lightning Express's DOT number. In regards to the last case in which Oklahoma Shuttles was stated by the state to being canceled because of insurance, Lightning Express, like Oklahoma Shuttle, was also licensed by the state in 2011. Their state license was actually Oklahoma Corporation Commission just stated that they never reapplied. So it's a little bit different. They didn't get canceled or revoked. They just never reapplied for their state license. In that case, since then, like I said previously, they've reapplied with Oklahoma City for our city license under the assumption that their state license was valid at the time, and they are currently, as of today, and the date of the complaint is listed as not authorized to operate with the state due to them never reapplying back in 2013, never reapplying since then. So currently they do not, or they are not authorized to operate, which would be a violation, or is presumed to be a violation of 56.3 of our licensing. Any questions, Mayor?
Anything for the sergeant? Okay. Council or staff, anything? Okay.
I'll await any questions from the commission.
All right, thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this item?
It's Khalid Rafaq, J&K Enterprise, 4345 Southwest 29th. The exact same issue that Oklahoma Shuttle had is the same issue with Lightning Express, but as of today or tomorrow, that will be in 100% compliance.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have a motion concerning item 5I?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the license of J&K Enterprises doing business as Lightning Express Shuttle be suspended until such time as they owe for violations of Section 56-3 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code until such time as they satisfy the provisions of our licensing division.
Okay.
Sergeant Dancy.
We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion to suspend J&K Enterprise and Imports, LLC, from doing business as Lightning Express Shuttle for a violation of Section 56-3 until they provide all necessary paperwork to be in compliance with our licensing division. That's from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay. Item is approved. Okay, we go now to comments from citizens. Any comments from citizens? Yes, sir. If I could have a blue form filled out once you're done. If I could have your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Greg Pruitt, President of King's Worldwide Transportation. It was mentioned today with the TNCs, and I know that that deadline is coming close. Just a question as to how many TNC drivers have become licensed in the midst of these extensions that we've given. Do we have a number of people that have gotten licensed, or any progress reports on the extensions that we're so graciously giving to these folks?
Do you want to answer that back?
I can answer. At this time, unless the sergeants deem to correct me, I believe it's 0 drivers from Uber and definitely 0 drivers from Lyft, because Lyft does not have their license completed yet.
So Uber does not have a completed city license? And neither...
I apologize. Uber has a completed city license. They do not have any permitted drivers.
And Lyft has no permitted drivers in Oklahoma City?
Correct, and does not have a completed city license.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Comments from citizens? Okay. Item 7, reports and other items from traffic commissioners, commission committees, staff, and municipal council office. Head on down over here to Commissioner Littlefield.
I have here the Encyclopedia Britannica. Take one, please. It's a progress report of how we're doing and what we're doing and where
concerning
the traffic and the traffic calming subcommittee.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, a long day.
These are 2 different items?
It's one item each. I was being funny about the size of it. It's very self-explanatory if you'll take a read. It's simply a progress report of what our intent was when we started it, what we've talked about, the items that we've looked into. We've gone back and we've looked at some examples of items that we've passed here to see, study their effectiveness. JB and I have done a lot of research, reading, thank goodness for the internet, on traffic calming designs, traffic calming plans. There's municipalities in the United States and Canada that have traffic calming departments that have been operating for 10 years. I think one important thing to keep in mind when you read this is the item that we heard today, where I believe we approved the all-way stop sign on Windsor and 91st Street. Am I saying those right? That is a classic example of where we don't have in our toolbox what we need to help these neighborhoods with these kinds of problems. And I probably mentioned in my dialogue with the applicant, it's the kind of thing where it's a condition of 2 or 3 things need to be implemented in that kind of a situation to calm that traffic down. And as you read through these, and I encourage you to do, some of them seem ridiculous, but it's amazing how effective they are. So, JB, do you have anything you'd like to offer on this? I want to thank you for your hard work.
I just hope that we are kind of initiating a discussion and that maybe we can push this at some point with support from staff and others.
Okay, good. Well, this is the first formal report from the work from the last year and a half. So we'll be able to read on it, and we'll talk about it again next month, and all be educated on it. Okay. Anything else, sir?
I have a question. I'm real curious about it. And it's in sympathy to the gentleman's comment about the Uber and Lyft driver's permits. What's in the process for notifying them that they have to do that? Is that up to the host? Is that up to Uber to notify their drivers that they have to come down here and get a permit?
I would say there's 2 notices to the driver. First, we've published our ordinances, and they have been widely dispersed in the news media. Secondary is up to the company to have their drivers in compliance in order to operate with that company.
Okay. Commissioner White? Commissioner White, anything?
Nothing to report. I would like to thank Commissioner Littlefield and Commissioner Schuline for their work. Look forward to reading this.
Okay, going down here. Sir?
Thanks to both the commissioners also. Question for council. Just drew a blank. On the, that's what I get for thanking you. I apologize. Yeah, come back.
All right, we'll come back to you. Sir, anything?
Thank you very much. No.
Okay, sir?
Nothing to report, sir.
Ma'am?
I just want to go on the record. I feel compassion for the situation of our last 3 items of the day. But I do think our regulations and the process is good and in place for lots of reasons. And I really hope that this is a matter of getting some paperwork quickly turned in and all is well and operating back as we should be. But I feel the pain of trying to navigate through multiple layers of government agencies. That's not an easy process for anybody. So I just want to say I feel the pain. I just do believe the process we have has worked and is working for all the other entities. So that's all. That's all I want to say.
Think about it?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Addressing the Uber and Lyft situation, is council familiar with the state legislation that's, okay, where are we at if that passes? Or does we default to the state?
As the bill currently stands, unless there is amendments from the House, if this bill passes in the current state, we would be preempted. The city would defer to the state.
Well, and in the bill it says it doesn't take effect till 1 November, but the emergency clause got pulled, I think.
It was reinstated. It will actually,
Reinstated?
yes, it will actually be 2 days after the, let me think, I believe it's June 1st. I believe.
Okay. Okay, so if the emergency clause is in there, then it's right after that. So the point comes, and just to put it on the table, if it passes next week, let's say it passes and it goes to the governor, signed, and we know that the month of May, we're just waiting for the 1st of November, or even, or the 1st of June, or even if the emergency clause got pulled, the 1st of November, would we at the city pursue compliance? I mean, I was just throwing it on the table, are we going to pursue compliance? Or, because we know for sure that if it doesn't get approved and our ordinance stands, we'll pursue compliance. That's pretty clear. But is there a common sense checkpoint here that, you know, yes, it's there, it's on the books, it just isn't in effect yet? I mean, what's the kind of counsel to us laymen?
The determination will have to be made at a different level than myself.
Well, of course.
And so I cannot answer to the city, chief of the city or to the mayor, the manager's office. So
yeah, that would be up to them to decide as the executive branch of the city of the enforcement of the ordinance. Would come from chief city and from the city manager's office. But they'd have to assess that, of course. You know, and there's a common sense flavor to it, I'm sure. Okay.
And so further clarification on that, if this passes and goes through, there is no licenses on Saturdays to the citizens' comments. That is all null and void, unnecessary process. So the 0 applicants right now, it wouldn't matter. Correct. Because it becomes a different, it comes out of this
Well, let's
realm.
just throw it on the table, too. That's what they're all looking at. They're all seeing where it's going. They're all seeing the vote count. They're all seeing what's happened in the Senate. Now it's going back to the House. They're all just throwing it on the table, just saying, and I'm just generalizing, just that they're just throwing it on the table saying, why should I go through this effort if I'm not going to have to next month?
Understandably. I mean, but those are just the facts. Whether anybody agrees with it or not, I agree with you. I think that's...
But we last month, when that motion came up to table and move the suspense into June, we said, no, it's on the books, it's on the books. So, I mean, as far as we as the traffic commissioners are saying, it's on the books, it's on the books, let's move and do whatever's required. But of course, if things come out next week, next month, and that's why I asked that one question, because they're in the first half of the 2-year session. Even if it's tabled, it's still there. It could go on into next year. So at some point, city leaders would have to make a choice and say, we need to enforce. It's not move in, needs to enforce, or we keep not enforcing, which is not our thing. All we're saying is, it's there, go do it.
So if the governor signs this, it passes the House and the governor signs it, what would prevent all of the vehicle for hire companies from coming in and reorganizing as TNCs? None of them will regulate anybody.
They would have to fall within the actual definition of a TNC and actually go into having this certain particular car that is defined within the statute. But if that is what they decide to do and choose to do,
well, the issue would be there's no hail-in, there's no taxis, well, there's no hail-in, there's no taxi stands, there's no cash transactions. Those kind of things is what the taxi industry brings. And if they wish to operate in that environment, we have the ordinance for that. Well, and it brings up a great point. And let's just, I mean, and I know we're really late, and I'm sorry, but it brings up a great point just to think about. At some point, if we believe that a taxi service is necessary for our citizenship, that what they bring, and they don't have enough work because all these other type of things are taking all that business, and we believe it's something that we want, then we do something like we're doing with the bus transportation. We ask the city council to find a funding stream to support taxis. I mean, if we're going to pull the string, let's pull the string all the way out, because that's what buses are. There's some city money given to have a bus system. It's not all fare-driven, and it's not evil, and it's not even. So if we feel, let's say 2-3 years go down, everybody goes to this TNC, credit card, smartphone, all that stuff, and there's no hail-in, there's no going to the store, there's waiting time, all that kind of stuff, and we feel that we need that and our citizenship wants it, then it would have to have some sort of funding stream to support it, because they couldn't operate with just 5-10 taxis doing the 2-mile trip to the grocery store. And so when you look at government oversight, that could be something that could come about if the industry flows that way. That's just something to just sleep on. All right, that's all I have. Anybody have anything else? Okay, let's do it. Anything, Counselor? Counselor's got something.
Just 2 quick things. Thank you both for all of your hard work. That was a very long process, and you were very dedicated to seeing it through, so thank you both. And then I just wanted to, if I may, address your concern about the length of the suspension. If, as they say, that the documents are there, all they have to do is take the certificate over tomorrow morning at 8, they're done. So just to that effect, it was only a suspension until those documents are handed over. As soon as that's done, they are back in business and ready to go back on their street.
Well, yes, sir.
Our intention right now is to appeal these decisions.
Uh-huh.
What would be our next move? I mean, how do we go about doing that?
If I may speak to you after the meeting, I'll go through all the details with you. Since it is so late, I don't want the commissioners called up.
But there's a time limit right now, too, so you need to talk fast to her. Okay. Any other questions or comments from up here? Anything else? Anything on the back of the report?
You've got our standard reports on the things that we handled administratively, and I'd like to introduce Jill Walsh, who's joined our staff in traffic management. So this is her first meeting, and that's all I have for this time.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? A motion to adjourn, please? We have a motion, a second. Everybody in favor? Let's say yes.